So we're going to take a little bit of shift away from some of the academic focus and move on to talking from a leadership perspective with another organization, with Nadine Dubina talking from the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee. And in case you weren't aware, they did change their name in June. They are now the USOPC, so we got to make sure we add the extra P in there. And Nadine's going to be talking a little bit about what's going on within the USOPC's coaching education division and some of the exciting things they're doing to try to really provide some of that leadership and guidance and organizational perspectives that Andy was actually talking about, to see how we might move forward in this space and how they can help the NGBs and the groups that they work with. So,
yeah, of course, thank you, Dr. Diefenbach, for inviting us, and we are really excited to be here. I'm speaking on behalf of my team and the organization, but being present in the room I think is really impactful. So I'm excited for everything that's happening now and the conversations that are going to happen later. So where I really want to start with this is that I'm going to move to this slide, and I really wanted to use an analogy to help us make different connections as we went through this presentation. And so I thought about the concept of a map. And so in order to define a map, I looked up some different definitions, and I found one that I think is really relevant and that helps connect a lot of the pieces that we're all talking about. So the definition of a map, according to one of the websites online, is that it's a symbolic depiction emphasizing relationships between different elements of some type of space. So that could be between different objects, it could be different regions, or it can be different themes, which I think is really relevant to this topic. So I'm going to be using this map analogy to help us connect different areas as we go throughout our contributions to the youth sports space, as well as some of the different presentations for today. So where are we starting? I'm going to start off just giving a bit of an overview of who we are as far as the USOPC, as well as the coaching department that sits within the USOPC. I'll be going into a little bit of how we operate in influencing and supporting NGBs to enhance quality coach and athlete performance and experiences, and then into kind of what we do in this space. So some of the practically applied evidence-based coach and athlete pathways, trainings, and resources that we offer. Finally, if there's any questions at the end, I'm happy to take those. So who are we? Just like Dr. Diefenbach had explained, we went through a rebranding, so we are a true representation of Team USA now. We're the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, and our mission was also kind of given an update to really reflect what we believe is important for our athletes. So we are here to empower Team USA athletes to achieve sustained competitive excellence and well-being. So it's no longer an or conversation. This is a performance and experience conversation. We believe in the power of both of those together. We also, just to give a bit of the landscape, we oversee and help to support 77 national governing bodies. So that is 42 Olympic summer sports, 8 winter Olympic sports, and we have 27 Paralympic sports that we also oversee. So where does coaching fit within this space? So we sit within the sport performance division. We are simply here to focus on 3 concepts in 3 areas to help the potential of all of our coaches reach where they want to go. And we sit within education, development, and recognition. And we're primarily going to look at the education space, as that's what most relates to the youth sport initiatives that we're looking at. So thinking about that map analogy again, I believe that in order to know where we're going, we have to know where we stand. So in order to ground ourselves, I know that we had used the analogy before of bedrock, but grounding ourselves into something, we have something called the Quality Coaching Framework, which we developed about 2 years ago, and that really serves as our purpose for everything that we do. We go back to the Quality Coaching Framework to make sure that it fits within there. And another key component is that we have the written document, but we also try to translate what that means to coaches in the field. Okay, so we have developed from the document of the Quality Coaching Framework how we would explain this to coaches, and we use the concept of a city. of going, do you sit in the middle of your city and do you know how to navigate around that city? The quality coaching definition that we use is the consistent application of integrated coaching knowledge, which is professional knowledge, interpersonal knowledge, and intrapersonal knowledge, in order to improve athletes' outcomes. We use the 4 C's here, so increasing athlete competence, confidence, connection, and character in specific contextual environments. So making sure the environment fits the athletes wherever they are in their development. And we also added in coach well-being, as this is an important topic and it supports our mission as well. Now that we've grounded ourselves in kind of how we see things, we also want to look up at the stars and what can we aspire to. So we have 4 different points that we are using to help us guide us in our delivery of these youth sport initiatives and sport just in general. And so the first one that we just revised was our coaching code of ethics. We are now calling it the coaching code of conduct, which will be available for everybody relatively soon. And really what this is to help our coaches know what is expected of them. This will be used for coaches who are coming to the Olympic and Paralympic training centers, who are operating from there, as well as coaches who are named to our Team USA, Olympic Games, Pan Am Games, Paralympic Games, things like that. NGBs can also take this document and model some of their own code of conducts off of this as well if they need that. That's the first one. The second one is looking at coaching principles. So this is based off of different work that is being done as far as standards in the field. We think this all aligns, but it is also grounded firmly in our quality coaching framework. And so we really want to use the term principles rather than practices, because we know that each sport exists in their own landscape, and so that they can use these as guiding lights to then create those standards off of, as long as they fit within kind of that bigger universal principle model. Our third one is aligning to strategic plans and goals. So that is both our strategic plans at the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, as well as specific NGB strategic plan and goals. Just like what was mentioned earlier, we believe that alignment leads to accountability. And so aligning and helping to execute on these high-performance strategies and goals is really going to help us move forward in this space. And then finally, we do not do this in a vacuum. Everything that we do is primarily between different working groups or bringing in expertise. So that it might be between us and NGBs, it might be between us and external partners, external experts, but we really try to take a collaborative approach so that we're not recreating the wheel, and that the resources and trainings that we do create are available to everyone and apply in different spaces. All right, so now moving on a little bit more to the what we do. One of our biggest initiatives in this space is the American Development Model. And so the American Development Model is a 5-stage model that was crafted back in 2014 in collaboration with our NGBs in response to long-term athlete development. The model that we have is relatively simple, not necessarily easy, but simple so that the NGBs can take and adapt to their own context. Within that, we have 5 principles, and our 5th principle within this model is quality coaching at all age levels, which applies to everything that we're talking about today. When it comes to ADM, we right now have a favorite number of 24, and this number represents the amount of NGBs who have adopted ADM for their sports. So looking at it, we have 24 NGBs right now who are utilizing ADM in the space, so that's almost half of our Olympic side of the house utilizing this, and we are looking at through Paris 2024 and ultimately LA 2028 that all 77 of our sports will have ADM in some way, shape, or form. How are we doing this? What's our vision to get everybody else on board? Is that we have a couple of different items that we want them to do. We want them to have a pathway, right? So that map again, so that people can visually see where they need to go. Also having competition and participation guidelines. So it's not a specialize and do more, but rest and recovery is also important, giving guidelines for that, having coach education and training. Really emphasizing physical literacy and fundamental movement skills so that we have holistic athletes and not just specialized athletes. Education resources, evaluation tools, again, themes that we're seeing kind of throughout this, and then really marketing what good looks like. What does quality, good coaching look like? I'm just going to bring up one example from those 24 sports, just to give you a little bit of a depiction, is from field hockey, USA Field Hockey, and they have done a phenomenal job of really taking these concepts and making them their own. So right in the middle of the screen, they have their map of what their ADM pathway looks like. But then they have taken in the top left, they have went ahead and broken down different ways that coaches can be trained in the different concepts of ADM, but also how athletes can participate in different programs that are grounded in the ADM principles. In the top right-hand corner, they are diversifying and providing their materials in other languages. So they have all their materials in Spanish as well to hit target populations to reduce those barriers of entry. In the bottom right-hand corner, they're doing great things of, hey, we've got a stick sport and so does lacrosse. Can we come together and get more athletes involved by playing stick sports together so that we can then share in the current athlete pool that's out there, keep them involved and keep them cross-training. And then finally, looking at different ways that they can support coaches, they came up with a card deck, so 50 cards, where they're called Go cards, and they're about small-sided games. So coaches can take these cards out with them, pull out one, and it teaches you how to play a small-sided game that teaches fundamental movement skills, sport strategy skills, and they can use those in those practices out with them like that. So that's just one example of some of the great work that's being done in this space. We also look to strategically align different partnerships, and so one of those is with Project Play, and this is something where we're looking at as being bigger. We've talked about this in many other different spaces, so I won't spend too much time on this, but really helping us to leave a legacy as far as Olympic and Paralympic sports goes. So if you guys don't know, we are hosting a home games again in 2028. So we really believe that in response to some of the Project Play initiatives, that we're going to be able to create a legacy of greater youth sport experiences and opportunities to continue to play throughout their lifetime. One way with those partnerships that we're doing is one of the barriers that we found from our NGBs is that there wasn't a centralized way to educate our coaches and our membership. And so what we have done is we, number one, have helped to create a baseline program for some volunteer coaches. It's free. It was in partnership between us, Nike, and Project Play called How to Coach Kids that was just recently released. There's a couple of great modules online that are available. And what we have done with some of our technology and innovation is that we are now able to put any of our programs on the NGB's sites already. So now coaches don't have to go to multiple different places in order to get the trainings that they want. So that's been really, really beneficial. You know, mobile friendly, goes into membership-based platforms, learning management systems, all of that. On the back end, we take care of that so that everything is accessible. All right, looking at some final thoughts. So whenever I was thinking about this, I had this picture come up, and I thought it was perfect, going back again to our map analogy. And the question that we are constantly asking ourselves as a coaching department is, are we leading by chance, where we are the guy sitting kind of, or woman sitting in the middle of that road and just happen to be kind of wandering along and just hoping that it works out for us in the end? Or are we leading by choice, where we are the ones who are the map makers? Okay, we are the ones who are holding that paintbrush, who are giving the guidelines on how to get through the landscape of what we're trying to do here in the youth sports space. A couple of initiatives that we believe in is that we really, really want to create a minimum standard for any coach who is going to walk on any type of field of play. One way that we are currently doing that is through all of our oversight with some of the NGB, with all of the NGBs, is that we are now requiring any coach who is a part of an NGB needs to be Safe Sport certified as well as have a background check. We, however, do not believe that that is enough. We would also like to have some type of coach education training and in whatever type of context or platform that is. So that can be, whether it's sports specific or non-sport specific or both, looking at that as well as making sure that the coaches are trained in the right context, the right ages, the right spaces for the athletes in their development. So we're currently working with NGBs on getting that set up, but we have started to at least lead the change on, for the NGBs, what a minimum standard would look like. Thank you.